USC LSU was a fantastic football game last night in Las Vegas.
It was.
I think, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was just under the impression that if USC struggled with Caleb Williams, what the hell were they going to look like without him? And it actually looked like a team that was not afraid to be physical.
They were physical.
And yeah, like it was a real dogfight against LSU, and they ended up winning the game.
And they played defense, something that they obviously hadn't done in quite some time. So the move at the defense coordinator's position obviously played dividends because it was defense that allowed them to stay in the game and close enough to be able to win a tightly played game, against LSU. I didn't think that I did not think that USC had it in them to win week 1 against the LSU. But I don't know. I came away from the game. Did I have more question marks on how good can LSU be? Should we just chalk this up to this was a week 1 deal where they were susceptible to a loss if they played against a quality opponent because it's so early? We saw so much sloppy play. I can ultimately say we saw a lot of sloppy play in the Penn State game against West Virginia. I mean, this is generally the week when we talk about, scrimmages, for the pros. And you're able to get out there and you're able to play and the game doesn't mean anything. Whereas in college, every game matters. And even with the expanded playoff, all these games still matter because you're playing for bye weeks. You're playing for so many different things, home field advantage. There's just so much at stake this year in college football. But there are teams that are accepting the challenge of creating a strength of schedule. And you see matchups like this in week 1, which I thought it's amazing for college football. I mean, I don't know what the ratings were on that game, Jonas, but I can imagine that it was pretty high.
Well, that would be a little bit difficult considering that, Disney and DirecTV decided, you know what, why don't we go ahead and get into a little bit of a pissing match over the contract. And so many people
weren't able to see
USC LSU or the U.S. Open for that matter.
Because they had DirecTV.
Yeah, because they went on and realized, I didn't know that our parents were fighting. So that's nice. So you walked in.
I can certainly bet. I can bet that people found ways to watch that game.
Yeah, I mean, I just
maybe it hurt the ratings for certain.
Well, but I would also say this though, and like not even just the rate, because who the hell knows what the number is going to end up being? Because it was a great game, and for those that got to watch it, I mean, you got to see a really fun game.
It definitely was a 4-quarter game.
Hell
to watch.
Yeah,
you didn't tune out.
But it's funny when these cable providers and these networks decide they're going to go ahead and drop this on everybody because like nobody was aware that there was some sort of a dispute, or at least most people weren't aware there was a dispute until they went to go turn on that game last night and realized, I'm screwed. And it's funny how they pick this week of all weeks to where they're like, okay, well, if you don't want to work with us and you don't like the numbers that we're offering, there's been statements back and forth of whose fault it is. But nonetheless, it was a great game that maybe some people didn't get to see because, again, their parents were fighting and DirecTV and Disney and whatever other issues were going on were playing out before everybody else who was trying to watch a football game, especially on a holiday weekend. I'll say this, with USC, I know everybody's celebrating it, and they're looking at like, man, Miller Moss and the way he performed.
It was a big storyline.
I mean, listen, like he
waited his turn, finally got his opportunity. We saw glimpses of it in the bowl game last year. He comes out, and I mean, he was making plays.
Yeah,
he was delivering the ball. He was making plays where he needed to make the plays. I mean, it wasn't an offensive explosion. It wasn't like it was like the craziest of accomplishments by him or this USC offense. But what I will say is they look to come out and compete and be very competitive against a team that was a 13th ranked team. Now, as we've heard from Q, sometimes you look at these rankings and these ratings, and you create an expectation, a standard for that team, and maybe preseason-wise, looking at it from the recruiting aspect of it, who they've gotten out of the portal, what they were able to do, and offering scholarships to high school players, how many players they have coming back. You know, you look at LSU, and you were anticipating at 13 that they should really be too much for a USC team at this point in the season, and they weren't. And so for me, I look at it from the standpoint of, man, does this mean that now, where I felt as though this is me coming into this season, the inaugural year in the Big Ten, how competitive can these Pac-12 teams be, these former Pac-12 teams be in the Big Ten? I think USC had the biggest game to prove to the onlookers out there that the Pac-12 can indeed not only integrate into the Big Ten, but actually be competitive in the Big Ten. I think that this sends shockwaves through the Big Ten community, because I don't know that anyone was looking at USC as being one of those teams that could possibly be a problem in the Big Ten.
And look, because to your point, it is week one, and maybe we look back 6 weeks from now after USC's gotten ripped in half by a couple of Big Ten teams and go, oh, okay, well, it was just that one game. And maybe LSU's not there.
And maybe LSU isn't. That's why it just left you feeling like there were question marks coming out of that game. But you don't want to take away from the value of what both of these teams are, top 25 rated teams.
Yeah.
Can't take that away from them.
And so with USC, and if you just look at their, like, keeping it locally out here in LA, if you just looked at USC and UCLA's schedule this year, UCLA's got the harder schedule by far. It's not even close. And you see USC, who's got some winnable games down the stretch. So this is a big win for them. It's one of the bigger games of the season for them. Gets them off and running. I think it maybe changes the discussion about some narratives about USC football and what they look like now as opposed to years past. So it feels like it's a feel-good moment for USC and Trojan fans following the departure of Caleb Williams, and now this team looks to be off and running for the year 2024. And then there's LSU. And then Brian Kelly, who's
me and my family, we ain't done winning yet.
Well, they're done winning week one, that's for sure. They're now 0-3.
They don't like winning in week one.
0-3 to open up the season at LSU for Brian Kelly. And this one, you could tell, kind of rubbed him the wrong way. Here was the LSU coach afterwards.
We're sitting here again. We're sitting here again talking about the same things, about not finishing when you have an opponent in a position to put them away. But what we're doing on the sideline is feeling like the game's over. And I'm so angry about it that I got to do something about it. I'm not doing a good enough job as a coach. And I got to coach him better, because it's unacceptable for us not to have found a way to win this football game. It's ridiculous.
Now,
that's a threat, Jonas.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. He threatened every single player, every single coach, every single member of that team that was on that sideline, whoever it is that he identified doing what it is that he just said they were doing, you're in trouble.
I'm trying to figure out which part he thought that they all were pretending like they lost, because when they got the ball back after the
they weren't pretending like they lost. They were pretending like they won. Listen to him again. Play it one more time. Listen to it again, unless I heard it wrong.
We're sitting here again. We're sitting here again talking about the same things, about not finishing when you have an opponent in a position to put them away. But what we're doing on the sideline is feeling like the game's over.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
I'm so angry about it.
So there you go. Stop it right there. Stop it right there. He's basically saying y'all SOBs did just enough for us to be in position to win. And I'm telling you, when they showed his face after USC got that last scoring drive to take the lead, his face was so disgusted and so dejected. He did not care about the camera seeing his face. He did not care about any type of any fallout that would come. His face told the entire story. Like, you knew, and for what it's worth, Jonas, maybe you needed to fix your face and fix your posture and what you look like. Now, granted, there was only like 8 seconds left. There was only like 2 seconds left.
Yeah, it's over.
But you still, as the leader, you got to go down fighting. Don't have that trash face like you ate some doo doo out of the trash can.
Dude, fix your face.
Don't come up on the camera screen like it ain't my, like you gonna make a face for everybody to see in the nation. It ain't my fault we lost.
By the way, you want to talk about one of the great lines in a movie, one of my favorite lines. Tom Cruise is in Vanilla Sky. He's got this deformed face, and some drunken a-hole walks up behind him and says, dude, fix your effing face.
Dude, fix your
Fix your effing face.
I swear to God.
That's what somebody needed to say to goddamn Coach Kelly last night.
It's the meanest thing you could ever say to somebody with a real problem. And if I were there and like washing my hands in the bathroom, I would have laughed so hard I would have crapped myself. Damn. That is just an unbelievably terrible thing to say to somebody. But back on the subject of LSU, this is what I wonder. And look, everybody wants to, week one, y'all want to come out and have a great performance. I remember Frank Reich, when he was in the NFL, he had a horrific week one record. Like, it was like they lost, if I'm not mistaken, he lost every single week one that he coached in the NFL. And that's Indianapolis. That's, his short time in Carolina before he realized this organization stinks and I'm just going to go play golf. F this. But I look at it and I go, I wonder if part of Brian Kelly's frustration is like, now there's like this narrative building with him that if you don't have your team ready for week one, what does that say about you? Because Frank Reich got really frustrated towards the end when the conversation was always about, you guys seem to start off slow. You're always losing week one. And it's almost like it's a reflection of the coach. Like, am I not getting these guys prepared to play? Because this is 3 years in a row. They've come out week one and they've been close games. And to his point, they were in control there and couldn't get a stop down the stretch. And Moss went up and down the field on them at will. And I just wonder how much of that is a reflection. And, yeah, a team's performance is all coach's reflection. But I wonder if it's, again, we're having this discussion about me not having these guys ready for week one.
I mean, ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to in the annals, right, is that Brian Kelly is not able to get them done. Get it done that way, have them ready for week one. Now, again, it leaves a lot of question marks for both teams. How good is USC? How good is LSU? If I'm LSU, it could work in your favor, even though you're behind the 8 ball immediately out the gate. It could work to your advantage. It just by pure circumstance of this being a part of an extended and a larger playoff pool. But make no mistake about it, the amount of pressure and intensity of possible fallout on losing a week one game and you're at a major Power 5 school, an SEC school, that's not a good look for your coach. I mean, we have conversations about Ryan Day or James Franklin who lose one game.
Right.
One game. We're talking about one game. They might lose one game, and we're talking about they're on the hot seat to get fired if they can't win this one game. So when you're talking about a team like LSU that has the type of tradition connected to them, they have national titles. They've had Nick Saban. They've had great coaches. Les Miles came in there and dropped one on them. You're looking at a guy who is the winningest coach in Notre Dame history, and you take on this job where the resources are supposed to be so vast for you to be able to build the team that you want to have. You've been there long enough to do this. Why are you not coming out and dominating in LSU fashion and form? And don't give me the doo-doo face like it's somebody else's fault. Don't try to deflect it by what you're saying in the post-game meeting for self-preservation.
He does have a good doo-doo face, though.
It's really good,
he's
man.
He's great at it.
Oh, man. It was such a disgusted look. It's like, man, who did it? Like, who messed this up?
And what happened to the Cajun accent? Does that just go away after 2.5 years?
When you got one foot out the door because they forcing you out, that Cajun accent has to go, because you might not be able to get another good job interview if you go to one of the schools that's going to hire you when they kick your ass up out of LSU.
My family.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey!
that's why I'll give True Detective the first season. Those guys carried that accent, all those other characters, all the way through the year. Brian Kelly lost it after like an hour and a half.
Hey, man, they send him on his way from LSU. How's it sound with his family?
My family.
That thing's going to turn into, yes, me and my family would like to vacate the premises of Baton Rouge. We are now not enjoying our stay here as guests of you pleasant people that have not been very pleasant to us. Like,
Get us to a golf course, Johnson.
They said that I was a football coach, but me and my family thought otherwise. It's time for us to go somewhere else.
Oh, man.
Forget y'all's Cajun accents. Maybe I can't communicate with y'all clearly enough to get the game plan that I've been trying to give y'all.